Hey guys, it's Christian, your Vancouver Realtor, and the topic for today's video is don't make renting a habit. And this video is inspired by a phone call I got a couple of days ago from a longtime client. And I get a variation of this phone call all the time in the business. And it goes something like this. My landlord is moving in and they're kicking me out. And you know, I met with my client. We did a showing at a property in the Vancouver's east side this week, and she shared the story of it with me. And I hear this all the time, and it's something like, you know, I was in my forever home. I've been here 7 years. I loved it, and then my landlord drops the bomb on me and says they want to move in. In her case, she lives in this really nice sort of, quasi industrial slash residential complex, and it's got an industrial feel look to it, so it's pretty cool. It's just in the Mount Pleasant area, and everybody loves being in that complex. Problem is, so do the landlords. They like living there too. And it's something that it's important you realize that for your landlord, you are a business decision. They're looking for someone who's reliable, honest, who's going to pay the rent on time and do that for a certain period of years. And then they're going to move on, right? They may sell the property or they may move into it themselves. I see this dozens and dozens of times over the course of a month or two in the business. And you just can't depend on somebody else's life for your living needs. And so you really have to think about this when you're renting. And you know, even myself, we own a property in Burnaby. I think we're pretty good landlords. If something breaks, I will call the plumber that minute and get them out there to fix it. But at the same time, I'm looking to rent at fair market rents. I want to get good tenants in there. I'm very selective, right? And I tell my tenants up front, you're doing me a favor by paying my mortgage. That's what your rent is. It's not doing you a favor. And in the long run, I want you to think about getting your own place. So I've even worked with my tenants to help them buy a place. But I always say, like, you can live here, but you don't want to do this for the very, very long term. Now, what I want to do is I want to give you a case study of what the numbers look like. Stories are nice, but you need to see the numbers yourself to understand how costly it is to rent in the long run. So what we're going to do is use an example of a simple condo purchase in Surrey. I'm working on one like this week. Let's say the condo costs $410,000. Your down payment is $70,000 or about 17%. You're paying a 3% interest rate, which is actually higher than what people are getting right now. And comparable rents might be about $2,000 a month. Now on your screen, you can see it says the rent versus buy and break even. Now here, if you draw this out over the long run, over the 30-year period, you can see here what the total cost is going to be. The pink line there shows you how much rent is costing you over a 30-year period. In this case, it's going to be coming up to about $1 million. The black line is the buy line. And if you were to buy and pay your own mortgage, you can see that it's going to cost you a lot less, right? And in this case, only about $500,000 over 30 years. So that's a significant difference here. And the key part of this is after the 30 years, that place is yours. So you could still sell it after 30 years. It's paid off. You could sell it for $1 million. You can keep renting and you got $1 million in your bank account. This is a no-brainer. In the long run, owning is a no-brainer. This is good for yourself. It's good for your financial future. I call it Freedom 45 here in Vancouver. Meaning if you get started early enough, if you buy a place in your 20s, even your 30s is fine, that you will be able to pay off most of the mortgage, and when it's paid off, you've got all this equity, right? Because over 20 years, the 30 years, the market has gone up quite a bit. Let me share another example with you, and this is, again, a short story. A number of years ago, I met a man at an open house, and he was renting in Kitsilano. I think he was paying something like $1,000 a month in rent. And he was really cocky about it. He was saying, he was puffing out his chest like, yeah, I'm only paying $1,000 a month. I'm good. Why would I ever buy something and pay $1,800 on a mortgage? And I said, look, wait, do you realize what you're doing to yourself in the long run? And he wasn't really open to listening and learning. But if I had a chance to talk to him a little bit more, what I would have tried to do is show him that, if he had bought the place in the mid-90s in Kitsilano, where he was living, by the time he met me, he'd almost paid off the mortgage on the thing, and he would have been up about $500,000. And today, that's probably up $750,000 from if he had bought it in 1994. So you got to think in the long term on these kinds of things. My rule of thumb is, if you're going to be in Vancouver more than 2.5 years, you need to get your own place. Because you can, even if you were to relocate to San Francisco or to Alberta for work, you can still sell your principal residence. And it's very likely that you're going to have, $10,000, $15,000 gain that you take with you to your new home. Okay? So those are just some things you need to be aware of. And maybe the crucial point too, something that held me back from owning my own place for a long time was, I always heard the term amortization, and that, the mortgage is amortized over 25 years, 30 years. And I would get this heavy feeling like a commitment, like it's like I was getting married to my property. You're really not. Remember, your mortgage term is 5 years, and you can sell it at any time in that period. The amortization is just the calculated breakdown of how long it will take you to pay off all the money you owe the bank. That's what that is. Okay, don't think about it as a heavy commitment, because it's not. You can sell it anytime you want. It's just like being in a rental. You can move anytime. Well, usually you have a fixed term lease for 1 year and then you give notice. Well, it's the same thing when you own your own property, okay? Finally, I wanted to give you another example. We had a short story. We had our tenants, great couple. They ended up having a couple of kids in our rental property in Burnaby, and it just got a bit too small for them. Plus, the Corona lockdown was just started at that time, and rents started dropping. And so they found another place, and they moved into the top floor of a bungalow house close to SFU Mountain. And they were really ecstatic about this. And she asked me for a reference, and I called the homeowner, and I told him how great my tenants were, and they were great tenants. And she said, "This is great. This is our dream. We're going to be able to live here for the next 4 or 5 years and raise our kids, and they can play and run around in the backyard." Not even a year later, she calls me. She tells me the seller wants to sell. She hadn't even been there. I think she'd been there 10 months. And again, and she was just heartbroken by it. And they had to end up moving to Langley or in Aldergrove. And the point is, again, you can't depend on your landlord's life for your own home needs. In this case, the landlord ended up telling her that she was getting a divorce, and the husband wanted half the equity, which is his right. And, that's it. It's time to sell, and you as the tenant, you got to start packing your bags. That's not a fun position to be in, especially when you have 2 kids. So you really have to take control of your own life, and the best way to do that is just to be, independent of other people's life situations. And that means getting your own place. When you own your own place, Nobody can kick you out. Only you can decide when you're going to leave or how long you're going to stay. And that's just, I feel it's such a liberating feeling. And you really want to have that for yourself. Plus the pride of home ownership, having your own place. I mean, it's just a great, great feeling to have. I can't tell you how excited I was. I remember I was walking on clouds the first month after I had bought our first place. And finally, it's the financial freedom. And just refer back to that visual that we had in the earlier part of this video. I mean, you're going to be saving and making $1 million if you own a property for decades. It's a no-brainer, slam dunk decision. You got questions about that? If you're not clear about something in this video, you contact us. Our contact is very easy to find. It's in the show notes. Go ahead and do that. And if we don't hear from you, at the very least, subscribe or give us a thumbs up, because we love having you. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time.